Hey everybody, today we're going to talk about my favorite small fish. And what I consider that is something that can live in like 10 gallons and under. Obviously we're not talking about a thimble of water, but some reasonable aquarium, and that's up to you what is reasonable. But these are my small fish that I've been keeping over the years and I fall in love with, have made great recommendations to people we sell at the store or people online. And yeah. So first up, I've got Pygmy Corydoras. Love them to death. Corydoras. My name is Corey. Kind of gotta love them. They only get, like that big. They scurry along the bottom. They clean. They'll eat almost anything. They're under $5 normally. You get a little group of 6 of them or so, and they're tolerant of a lot of different water parameters, and that includes temperature, that includes pH and hardness, and they're assuming they've been eating some at the store when you buy them, they'll thrive for you. And so mostly all these recommendations is going to be like, yeah, here's what I like about them. You can do way more research. You can, really plan, but this is to bring your awareness to it. Be like, hey, look into these guys. Next up, I've got clown killies. So this is a killifish, and they look like little rockets. The males are super duper bright and colorful. The females not as much, but they're not too hard to breed in an aquarium, especially if it's only them. So they love to feed off the top of the water, kind of the middle of the water. If you get our magic small fish feed, that helps a ton. If you hatch out live baby brine, that helps a bunch. Frozen cyclops, lots of options to feed them, right? But they look super cool. They will sail right out of your tank, though. They will rocket right out of there if you don't have a top that's fitting really well. So do make sure you have that. Otherwise, not too picky about parameters. Again, they're just a great little fish. They run anywhere from $4 to $10, depending on where you're buying them. Are they selling only males? Is it male and female? Are they big? Are they small? But they're not too hard to breed. And even though they have the scientific name of annulatus, they're not annuals, so you've got time to breed them and do all of that if you want to, but you don't have to. You can still get, a decent amount of years by just keeping them. Next up, the Celestial Pearl Danio or the Galaxy Rasbora. I don't think they get enough fanfare. And you'd be like, but I see them everywhere. Yes, but they are absolutely amazing and should be more talked about and more highlighted. To me, these are the small fish version of the rummy-nosed tetra, the cardinal tetra, the staples in the hobby. This, it came out now. I'm aging myself. Over 20 years ago, is when it kind of came out. But it was the newest and latest greatest thing, and some of these other fish have been around for 30 years before that. But these guys have stood the test of time. They're amazing. I usually see them between $7 and $10 a piece. They could be a little bit more. Males are more colorful than females. They can go in cool water tanks, which is nice. They're not too hard to breed. There's a lot of videos on how to breed them. They're not too hard to raise up the fry. And because they have that price tag associated with them, it's kind of worth your time and effort too. So if you just get, a few of them, you get a little school going. You could do that in a giant tank, in a small tank. But as for a small fish, there's not a whole lot more you could ask for out of a small fish than the Celestial Pearl Danio. Feeding them kind of like all these other small fish, they want stuff mid-water. So magic small fish feed, live brine shrimp, frozen brine shrimp, or cyclops, anything that's going to kind of hover around for them to really get a good meal in. I have seen them feed from the surface, I have seen them eat from the bottom, but I really watch them attend the buffet in the middle. Next up, white clouds. They're old school, they're awesome. I've got them in my fish room, whether they're normal, whether they're gold, whether they're longfin, I don't care. I love them all. You can put them outside, at least where I live. They'll even overwinter with a few inches of ice over the pond. So they're super duper hardy. They'll take about any water parameter you throw at it, whether it's hot, cold, high pH, low pH, hard, not hard, doesn't really matter. They just are awesome. And you might look at the store and like, well, those don't look like the video, or I don't know, why would anyone like these? You got to grow them out a little bit. They don't always look spectacular at the store, and you don't see the behavior they do where they're displaying for the females. And so you want males and females. You can get a mix. You can mix and match, longfin, normal, golds, all of that. And just keep them and enjoy them. And if you only keep them, usually you'll raise some babies, and you'll be tricked at first. You'll be like, I made neon tetras. Well, you made baby white clouds. They just happen to look like they'd be baby neon tetras. I think if you could have no other fish, they're the ones that I would choose to keep in the hobby because they're so versatile. Now, luckily, we can keep so many things, and there's a lot that would go on that list of like, ooh, is that a consideration? But the white clouds, boy, they are just a treat to have. And a lot of people gloss over them. And so I really would encourage you, if you haven't kept them, if you don't have a tank of them right now, even if you have kept them, you probably should get some again so you'd be like, oh, that's right. They are one of the best fish that have ever been kept in our aquariums. Next up, I've got the chili Rasbora, also popular. I think it is sung about enough. They look great in stores. They don't look great unless they're in a display tank, meaning when they're young, you're like, yeah, there's some red, I guess. But when they're adult and they're breeding, you're like, is that fish literally on fire underwater? They look great, and that's why they get the chili Rasbora name to them. Mid-water feeder, like all these other guys, so apply those. They're fairly easy to keep with water parameters, so that's good. Get a group of them, 6, 12, 100, 200, any amount you can afford. They typically are somewhere between $3.50 and $7, but they're not easy to breed. So that is one where you're like, oh, what you buy is what you're going to get. I haven't met many people that have ever bred them. So, if you are breeding them like a madman, go ahead and tell us all how to do it and make a video and teach us all, because we would love to have 1,000 of these things. Next up, we've got the neon green Tetra. These guys stay smaller, which is an important step, because you might say neons are small or cardinal Tetras are small. These guys are even smaller, and they are a green color if they're seen correctly. If you look down on them, you will see a green stripe. You look up at them, you see two different colors. So if you're viewing them downward, or the light is hitting them at a 45-degree angle, you'll get that nice green popping color. Mostly, almost always wild caught. They are bred sometimes, but not very often. They aren't as widely tolerant. Like, they go up to maybe 7, 8 pH. And they do like to be warm, but they'll handle hardness kind of just fine. And so they are a great way to add a splash of color if you're like, hey, I have one of the other things mentioned, and then I want to add these guys. You can kind of get a small tank going with multiple little schools of 6 to 8 fish each. And, kind of have a real, like, wow, it's real busy. And that's a good thing, to be able to mix and match different schooling fish, even in small aquariums. Next up, fancy guppies, whether you're going for one of the smaller varieties or one of the big tail varieties, or I'm even going to lump in like a tiger endler, which is a hybrid. In general, guppies in smaller tanks, they're really hardy once they get settled in. They do like hard water, they do like warmth, and they do like higher pH. You give them those things, and you might have 50, 60 of them in a 10-gallon, which is crazy, but they do okay. I don't recommend that. But yes, they breed. Yes, they look pretty. Yes, they'll eat anything. They're not hard to take care of. You get those basic requirements down, you can pretty much always unload them at a fish store for, some credit or some food or something. And so I love the kaleidoscope, or the rainbow of color you've got going on in there with, usually you're mixing all these small fish with live plants. And it's a really solid option to always just like, something's going on. Oh yeah, it's a new baby, new color, new this, new that. She's pregnant. That guy looks really cool. And they live a couple years, so that's nice. But they're always kind of changing, and the dynamic will be moving for you. And I think that's a very good quality to have if you're only going to have maybe one small tank. Next up, we've got sparkling gouramis. Subtle fish. You hit them with the right light, and they glow with spangles. They also are a little bit of a micro predator, so they'll take out usually things like hydra and little shrimps, like not like cherry shrimp, but like tiny little seed shrimps and things like that. And they've got, if you've ever kept a gourami before, they've got that behavior. They're kind of, I'm just checking things out. I'm stalking things. So if the other ones are dogs and they want to play with you like a guppy would, this is the cat of like, I'm real sneaky. I'm checking things out. And they're usually pretty cheap, under $5. You can keep them in a little bit of a group. You can mix them with a lot of the other things. So that's what's nice. Is like, yeah, I'm just getting one of these, and I'm getting some some chili Rasboras and some Pygmy Corydoras. Like, yeah, you've got a whole kind of thing with a little centerpiece now. Pretty tolerant. I haven't found them to be super finicky about water parameters, other than they like to be warm, like most fish do. But there are some fish that are in the list that don't even care about that. But wide and easy to take care of. Not super easy to find always, though. Next up, Kuhli Loaches, bottom dwellers, danger noodles, little snakes, what's that thing? They all go by all those little names. And you can get them in black, you can get them in silver, you can get them in purple, you can get them in striped, you can get them in other striped, and what's that one, and this one. And if you really want to torment your local pet store, you go, I want that one, which is nearly impossible to catch. They run about $5, and they hide out in the roots of stuff and in the shadows, and they come out more at night, and they don't get very big. But everybody kind of universally either goes, ew, I don't like snakes and worms. Or if you're not one of those people, you go, gotta have those, need to own those. Those are super cool, and they don't really take up a whole lot of space. So they, again, are pretty forgiving with water parameters. Keep them warm. Other than that, though, pretty much everybody goes, yeah, I've had Kuhli Loaches. Yeah, they're awesome. Yeah, we all agree. And if you're not keeping them, you should. And they fit into your small tanks. So all the more reason. Next up, this is not the traditional thing. I would say a single pair of Apistogrammas. And that's a little dwarf cichlid. It could be, super red, orange flash. Super reds or orange flash. It could be Borelli. It could be there's a bunch of different ones, flavors. I'm going to say flavors to choose from. You basically pick a pair, you keep them in, 5 to 10 gallons or something like that. And yeah, they'll breed and you'll get all that behavior and they'll be super duper fun. And you have an outlet for them because stores would love to buy them from you because they're expensive. These guys usually run $40 and up a pair. And they are a little more particular about water parameters. They would prefer not really going above 7.4-ish. They don't like hard water. They prefer soft. And they like to be real warmed. So not just warm, but like 82 degrees to 84. They really thrive in. You give them that with a Planet tank, and you get a boy and a girl. Not a sneaker male, but an actual boy and a girl. And they'll probably just make you some more babies. And that's super fun to watch them grow up and to raise them and to sell them. Well, you're not selling, you can give them away too, but very rewarding experience if that's, you're thinking, I would love to see, make a ecosystem and just watch the whole thing. And I've let it go before where you just let generation after generation. So you're like, oh, that 2 of them made it from that batch, 1 made it from that batch, and you've got, brothers and sisters and teenagers and babies and adults all in the same tank, kind of hiding out in different plants. Fun to watch, especially if it's on a desk or something like that. Next up, more cichlids, but different. Neolamprologus multifasciatus, which you'll never remember, so we'll just say multis, shell dwellers. These guys live inside little shells. They do want warm water, not necessarily hot, but warm water. They want hard water, and they want high pH. They're an African cichlid. And they live inside shells. They breed inside shells. They will dig all day long. They'll spit it out on their neighbor's yard. They're pretty much hilarious all the time. But they don't go with a lot of other fish. So you would have just a tank dedicated to them. They will bury plants, so you have to put things like Anubias and other stuff up on bigger rocks so they don't just dig them up all the time when they're floating. But if you've never kept them, they're well worth keeping. Unanimously loved by the family. People, you see what they're doing? Wow, look, it always changes. And if you're at work, great for that too. Every time someone comes to visit your desk, like, wow, it really changes a lot in there, doesn't it? And you're like, yeah, they're always up to something. And so that's a very rewarding experience right there too. Last on my list, I've got red neon RainbowFish. It's a pseudomogil, not that hard to breed, takes forever to raise. They look absolutely amazing. They're one of the best looking fish in my opinion, just all together. I love them. They're anywhere from 10 to $20 probably a piece. And, the males are prettier than the females. They will jump out of a tank if you don't have a closed top. But if you put in some floating plants and that kind of stuff, they'll be laying eggs. You can put mops in there. You can raise them up. Or just enjoy them. They will eat. They will put on a display for you. They will look amazing. You can pair them. They're a nice red color, right? So you go, oh, maybe I do those up top. Maybe I've got green neon Tetras in the center. And then maybe I've got Kuhli Loaches and some Pygmy Corydoras on the bottom. And that's a real fun planet tank you got going on there. So I would say more females than males, if you can help it, if they'll let you pick. And groups of, I would say a trio or more at the bare minimum to get it going. If you got 6, that's even better. They're expensive fish though, and so maybe you want to try your hand at breeding them and you get just a pair or a trio, and I wouldn't fault you for that. And if you can make more, anybody would love to have some, stores included. So those are some of my favorite small fish. Like, I love a lot of fish, and you could talk me into loving any fish almost, and they all have different things about them to appreciate. But I think a lot of people will appreciate these. Not all of them are ones that other people appreciate, but I'm telling you, a guy that owns a fish store, he has worked at fish stores for 15 plus years. I've got 30 aquariums of my own. A lot of these do make it to my tanks, and I really, really enjoy them. Even though I've got giant aquariums, I still end up putting small fish in them very often because they're just some of the best fish. And why not keep the best fish if you can? So that's my list. Take notes. If you liked it, leave a thumbs up, and we'll see you in the next one.